Folks, I know there's a lot of news about the Supreme Court and what they have and haven't done over the past few days, but what if I was to tell you that the Supreme Court just handed President Trump and JD Vance and the Republican Party probably the most powerful weapon in American politics, and it happened today, 6-3. And that's the cap on what political parties can spend directly with their own candidates. It's gone, eliminated, unconstitutional. Now, here's the thing. The RNC has $116 million in cash right now, and the DNC only has $14 million, and they're $17 million in debt. And that ceiling just came off. Because look, here's the part that nobody's really talking about, especially on TV. They're not going to talk about it because they don't get it, okay? The man who built this case did it 4 years ago, and he did it before anyone knew where he'd end up. And he's now one heartbeat from the presidency, JD Vance. So look, here's what I'm going to walk you through today. Number one, what this ruling actually means in plain language, because the legal coverage is going to bury it. Okay. Number two, why JD Vance filed this lawsuit in 2022 and he was just a Senate candidate. Nobody's watching. And number three, why Trump has called this, and I'm quoting him directly, a big win for Republicans. And more importantly, the First Amendment. And number four, what this means for your living room between now and November. It's going to be big. Okay, stick with me. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why the Democrats probably just lost 20 to 25% on their chance of winning the midterms. And they happened this morning. And I don't even think they know it yet. They might, actually. But it doesn't matter. Okay, let me put this in plain language, because the way the media is going to cover this and the way they cover campaign finance law is designed to make your eyes glaze over. Okay, since the 70s, since Watergate, there have been limits on how much political parties can spend in each direct coordinated campaign with its own candidates. We're talking about, the party and the candidate in the same room, agreeing on the same message, the same strategy, running the same ads on your TV, your mailer, all that stuff, okay? There was a ceiling on that. For a House race, $65,000 to $130,000 was the cap, okay? For a Senate race, depending on the state, go up to $4 million. Now that ceiling, because of this ruling, is gone. Now the spend is unlimited. And it's as of this morning. Now, look, here's why that matters, okay, more than the dollar amount. I ran for Congress. I know exactly what this coordinated money does, especially in close races. Super PAC money is loud, but it's disconnected, okay? Campaign, legally, the candidate, campaign, their advisors, all that, cannot talk to the super PAC about strategy, okay? They have to run their own ads independently, using their own messaging, and voters normally can smell it, okay? It feels like outside money because it is outside money. Okay, coordinated money is completely different. And that's the part, the party and the candidate now have a lot of more room with, okay? They can work in the same room, same plan, same voice, same messaging, okay? That's the money that actually moves votes. And as of this morning, no limit. No limit on how much either party can spend. Justice Kavanaugh wrote the majority opinion, and it won 6-3. And Kavanaugh's argument was keeping the caps in place helped outside groups, and it helped them gain an unwarranted and unfair advantage over political parties. The caps, he said, they co-signed political parties to continued second-tier status. And the 3 justices dissented. The normal, Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson. Kagan said the ruling ushers back in the same opportunities for quid pro quo corruption, and that the contribution limits were meant to check. Now, that's a serious argument, and I'm not going to pretend it isn't, but let me tell you, what Kagan didn't say is that the billion-dollar super PAC apparatus the Democrats built over the last 15 years, the 501c4s, the dark money nonprofits that nobody can trace, they didn't object to unlimited money in politics when those things were rolling out. They objected to losing the one lane, though, where Republicans just got a lot faster because they got a lot more money. Here's the part that maybe get you thinking, okay? This case, like I said, didn't start today. Didn't start this morning. Started in 22. JD Vance started it. He was a Senate candidate right here in my state of Ohio when JD and I were campaigning together, actually. And he started this before anybody knew he would end up. And he filed along with Congressman Steve Chabot in the NRSC and the NRCC, okay, 4 years ago. And look, nobody knew then that he'd be the vice president. But he was already building the case that just blew the doors off campaign finance law. And think about what that tells you about how his team operates. Most politicians in this country can't see past the next news cycle. They're worried about their donors. They're playing checkers. JD filed a First Amendment lawsuit in 22 that he knew was going to take years. And take years to get to the Supreme Court and maybe even longer to get a ruling. I mean, he filed this knowing exactly what, when the court was going to get it and when, what he was going to get. Okay. He also knew that he was going to be able to benefit from the court that Trump had built, 3 justices. He knew, exactly what the money gap would look like in 26. I don't think that's somebody you could call a politician, folks. I think that's somebody you call a chess player. And the man who put him on the ticket, the man who built that court with the 3 appointments, President Trump, and he posted this morning, and I want you to hear his exact words. Big win for Republicans. And more importantly, the First Amendment. I can sit here and tell you, okay, again, like every other thing, that this was some mapped out strategy that they put together 4 years ago. But it doesn't matter. Because the people who actually win in this town, they don't play the news cycle. They play the calendar. And right now, 4 months before a midterm, that decides who runs Congress. I mean, the side that played the long game, the Republicans, just cashed in. Now, let me show you what this ruling actually lands on. Okay, the RNC, or the Republican National Committee, again, is sitting on $116 million in cash today. The DNC, Democratic National Committee, $14 million. And they're carrying $17.4 million in debt. Well, that's not a gap, folks. That's a different sport. It's a canyon. Now, you look at the NRSC, the National Republican Senate Committee, they just reported the highest cash on hand in the committee's entire history, $48.8 million. So the rule that capped coordinated party spending just disappeared for the side that already has 7 times the money than their opponent. Now, what this means for you personally between now and November, before today, if a Republican senator in a tight race needed the party to flood the zone with ads, with mailers, with digital stuff, with ground operations knocking on your door, giving you flyers, there was a ceiling, $130,000, $4 million in a big Senate race. Okay, that was the limit. After today, they can write a check for the full $48 million and run it through a single Senate campaign in direct coordination. So again, you get the same message, the same strategy, talking in the same room. And the Democrats spent 15 years building this super PAC machine to get around these rules. But the problem with that super PAC is it can't talk to the candidate. And the Republican Party today just got the ability to do what that super PAC can do. Unlimited coordination. Oh, man. You will see the results of this in your own living room. You'll get more ads. You'll get more mailers. You'll get more robocalls. You'll get targeted, coordinated stuff that's going to be on message. And it'll be annoying, but you got to think about the voters that aren't paying attention. Okay? That's the ones we got to reach. Okay? And there's going to be a huge flood in these competitive races all across the country. Now, here's what nobody ran today, and I don't think they're going to continue. I don't think they're going to run this. Okay, the Supreme Court didn't hand down a single ruling today. It actually handed down 5. Birthright citizenship, transgender athletes, presidential power, mail-in ballot deadlines, and campaign finance. Every camera in the country is pointed at one of those 5. Birthright citizenship. That's the one running the panels, running the chyrons. I mean, it's all over, filling every minute cable news. Let me ask you something. Birthright citizenship. You know it was always going to lose in this court. Every legal analyst who looked at it said so. And it was never even going to be close. The Supreme Court was never going to rewrite the 14th Amendment in one ruling. But it ran its cycle, okay? Every panel show, again, every reporter going live from the courthouse steps. But meanwhile, you had this case that started in a Senate candidate's campaign office in Ohio 4 years ago. And 4 years later, it removed every limit on coordinated party spending 4 months before probably the most important midterms of most of our lifetimes, for the side with 7 times the money. That case became law today, and most people still don't even know it happened. When you watch the story they wanted you to watch today, I just showed you the one that actually changes the paradigm, how the next election is going to be fought. Now, there's a couple ways it's going to play out, okay? Because we still got a couple months. Number one, it doesn't change anything. The Republicans already had the money advantage. They already had the enthusiasm. Maybe they already did pre-coordinated spending, okay? And, maybe this money is accounted for. It's possible. Or number two, it reshapes a handful of House and Senate races. And there's 7 or 8 seats in play right now. And if the NRSC can pour $40 million into those races in direct coordination with the candidate, okay, those are races that could possibly keep the Senate red for a decade. And I think that's the most likely outcome. Or number 3, it becomes the first domino. And Kagan said it herself. The ruling gives donors a way to effectively write unlimited checks to candidates through the party. And if that's what actually happens, the campaign finance system as we know it is probably gone. And whoever builds the better coordinated machine, not the bigger super PAC, the better coordinated machine wins. And right now, well, it's the RNC by a factor of 7-1. But there are some very, very wealthy postal liberals that are willing to put their money up. They do it a hell of a lot more than the Republicans. So, look, here's where I land. Supreme Court, 5 rulings. The only one that actually moves the needle is the one that we just talked about. Okay? It impacts the midterms directly. JD Vance built that case 4 years ago, and who'd have thought he'd be standing in the Oval Office when it got cashed in? The court Trump built with those 3 justices delivered that ruling, and it landed on the same day that the RNC has 7 times more cash than the lefties. Now, I can tell you for certain that this was probably not all, it wasn't all part of a master plan, but I can tell you, people who will win in this business, they're not going to win if they're not running these type of plans. Okay, they're going to win because they're patient, they're strategic, and they're watching the board. Effectively, they're 3 moves ahead, while everybody else is still reading yesterday's headline. So you watch the story that they wanted you to watch. Now you know the one that actually matters. So my question is, what do you think? Did you even know that this was going to be happening before you heard it from me today? Yes or no? Let me know in the comments. I read them all. Okay. And if this is the kind of breakdown you don't get anywhere else from somebody who actually has been inside a campaign, knows how this money works, then subscribe to the channel, because every time a story like this breaks, you can trust one thing. I'll be here to tell you the truth. I'll be here to tell you what these things actually mean. So until next time, I'll get my office redone, and I will see you in the next one.